Hello again. Welcome to episode 2 of the City event. As you'll see today, there's just myself and one other guest, a guest that you'll probably recognise, those that are watching on the video, somebody that came on a lot of the spaces and podcasts that we used to do before we packed it in for the second or third time. Anyway, this gentleman was part of it, voice that was liked amongst the fan base. So welcome along, Labib. How are you doing, buddy?
I'm all right. Thank you very much, Adam. How are you?
Good man. Well, we say we're all right, but we're probably still stinging a little bit from the result of the weekend, mate.
Proper, yeah.
But yeah, it's just a hard one to shake, given who it was and given the manner of the defeat and the manner of the performance. And just before I bring you in on this, I think it's important to say that it's all right to care, because there's this sort of narrative that's being pushed out on social media that Huddersfield don't care about Bradford. We're not bothered about it. You know, we're higher than you in the table. We're absolutely cut up about it. Let's be really honest. We went there with all intention of giving them a good game, and we didn't show up at all. And I think that that's really important to point out, because for whatever reason we try to brush it off. But it's all right to hurt, innit, in football, Labib?
Well, we've been following City quite a while between us, and we've had moments like this before. But like you said, it was the manner of defeat. It was the fact that it was against our nearest rival. Geographically. We don't get many West Yorkshire derbies, and obviously we were hoping for big things based upon the result against them at our place. But I don't know whether you want to kind of dissect the game, but it does hurt. It does. It really does. It was awful to watch, put it bluntly. It really was. Even when they were down to 10, we really, really struggled to shift anything. I don't know if I mentioned this to you, but I watched the highlights on Sky Sports. They do a little, like a 2-minute kind of clip, don't they, of every game in the EFL. So I watched that, and within that 2 minutes, obviously it showed their goal, it showed their sending off, and it showed a couple of the other chances that they had. It didn't contain anything that we created, which is not surprising because it was very little. I think people have commented that our XG was something like 0.16 at the end of the game. So we created very, very little. Apart from the kind of lack of cutting edge finesse up front, it was just the first half performance was just worst I've seen this season, without a shadow of a doubt. I went to Mansfield. We were poor at Mansfield, but this was even worse. And to do that against your biggest kind of sort of geographical rival is painful, really, really painful. Obviously, Huddersfield fans are like all over social media out there at the moment, sort of giving it the big one. Fine, we do exactly the same. We deserve to lose. There's no shadow of a doubt. They were the better side, but it was how good we made them look. Really, I think that's what hurts.
Yeah, and as far as it being a derby, it absolutely is to both sets of supporters, and they might have been trying to play it down because they've not played us in so long. They've been in the Premier League as little as 7 years ago. We've been rotting away in the smaller divisions. We're obviously above them in the table. I think at times they would probably try to play it off, but on Saturday they absolutely weren't. It had all the elements and the spice to make it a local derby. I was in the Boy and Barrel pub before the game. That was one of the away pubs. And all of a sudden, we heard this massive commotion and noise. And we looked round, and there were sort of police horse in this big police cordon of people walking down. We all thought it were Huddersfield fans coming towards us. It was like a scene off Zulu, the Michael Caine film when they're sort of coming over. It was literally like that. There were hundreds, if not near to a sort of 500-600 fans sort of coming down this street, and they all came in. And it was just brilliant. And then obviously got marched to the ground, and They made a lot of noise, to be fair to them, in that sort of cowshed end that we were in as well. And I thought they were better than what I thought they would be, to be honest. But they were well up for it. But on the pitch, there were only one team that classed that as a derby. And not only that, in the performance of how they actually played football, little moments with their players. Goalkeeper, for one, shithousing. You'll have seen it yourself, when he was looking over to the crowd when he slowed it all down. It's what you need to do in derbies. Pumping to the crowd when they're getting a corner or a good tackle, all that sort of stuff. We were just flat to a man. We were terrible on the pitch. If you think about who came out with credit, Tilt at a push, but barring that, many other players, mate. I don't know what your thoughts were, but I just thought we were horrendous and we didn't even get off the coach as far as the football's concerned.
Yeah, I mean, I made the same comment when we beat them at our place, in the fact that they didn't turn up that day, and we didn't even get anywhere near turning up on Saturday. We can go through player by player. It's interesting you mentioned Till. I thought he got caught out several times in that first half, especially there was a couple of balls played over the top, and he was just caught standing. And they kind of played their lad in with like loads of space built on that. Probably one of the worst games I've seen him have, of my opinion. Um, I'm not sure there is that many players that come out with a little bit of credit, if any. And I'm sure we're going to touch upon it. But how much did we miss somebody like Sarcevic on
Huge.
Saturday? And I'm sure we'll talk about any information we've got as to how long he's going to be out for. But McIntyre, Metcalf. McIntyre's gone, hasn't he? But Metcalf, I thought tried. I thought he did try and win a couple of tackles and sort of get stuck in. But like you said, they were proper up for it right from the get go. And you can understand it. New manager bounce, local derby. They want revenge on getting stuffed at our place, and they were on it from the kickoff, all over us. Really, we just looked flat-footed. We lacked that sort of passion, or seemingly we seem to lack that passion. That energy, and that just from a footballing perspective. So many times we just gave the ball straight back to them. We got possession and we just hoof it up front. And we started, it was like watching Phil Parkinson's team from the 2013 era. It was like long ball stuff. But we didn't have a James Hansen up there. We didn't have an Aki Miles running off him. Wasn't finding our player. We weren't holding the ball. We were giving it straight back. Their midfield kind of overran us, obviously. Loads of possession, loads of passing, loads of movement, and we just couldn't match it. Didn't get anywhere near. Absolutely shocking, really.
Not that I want to make a habit of giving Huddersfield credit, but you've got to. They were so organised. They absolutely nullified us. Nerful, stinker, absolute stinker. And he looked a little bit like he was back to his old self in the previous game. But
He did
on Saturday, he was just absolutely anonymous, got bullied off the ball, just didn't really look like he wanted to be there. But again, I'm not just going to pick him out because we can go through all the players and each and every one of them. Baldwin as well had a stinker and he's been brilliant. And when players like that are playing like they are against your biggest rivals that you've got at the moment, it's just not good enough. And it really highlighted to me that Alexander needs to do a little bit of work in the market, and we'll come back to that. You mentioned Sarcevic, and I want to bring that back up because to me, yesterday and throughout the season when he's not played, it highlights that he is our best player. When we don't play, we struggle. I'm not saying that he's absolutely out of this world because he is getting a little bit older. He's getting probably a little bit slower on the ball, but he's the one play that can make things happen. He's in the right positions. There's a ball. I don't know if, like I say, the highlights are very limited. Humphrey's got a ball across the box and nobody's attacking it. And it was a really good ball in, to be fair to him. And you've got nobody there. Obviously, number 9 would be a person, somebody like Andy Cook, in a new capacity. But yeah, I think to me it highlights how much he is our best player. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but the injury, and if he is out for a long period, that is very, very concerning.
I definitely agree in terms of the concern as to how long he's been out, how long he's going to be out for. Is he our best player? I think he's certainly one of the most influential. Yeah, there's obviously stats that are out there that show how many games we've won with him starting, and how many we've won without him. And I think the majority of the games that we've won is when Sarcevic is starting on the pitch. I can't remember exactly, but it's significant enough to kind of stand up and pay attention to it. And like I said, we really missed his kind of experience, his guile, his kind of craft. You know what I mean? It's not the quickest, but as I said, he knows what position to take up. His balls, his passes, his crosses into the box, are absolutely spot on. I'm not saying it would have made the difference yesterday because what serves would he have got? Would he have got much of the possession? Would he have got much ball? As we were just completely overrun. It kind of, for me, raises the question as to, at the start of the season, we were absolutely flying, weren't we? We were playing a very kind of simple system, but it worked. And now, obviously, people now say that we've been found out, and people know how to nullify us, and they can counter it, and we struggle to respond. And all of that seems to be true. And for me, I think it's all down to the midfield, as I think opponents tend to pack that midfield out, knowing we've only kind of really got two central midfielders. And the other two are the kind of wing backs who we expect to push up and we expect to drop back as well. So I think when teams put an extra body into that middle, we tend to struggle with it a little bit.
Do you think
Well,
on the central midfielders, Labib, as well,
mm,
and we'll highlight Max Power here, do you
mm,
think he's like in a lower gear at the minute in relation to the yellow card situation? Because if he gets one more, obviously it's a ban. But do you think he just seems to have dropped off last couple of games and is not quite as fully
yeah,
committed and full-blooded as he has been?
I can understand why people are saying that, and it makes sense. But I'd be amazed if he consciously went into a tackle only giving it 80% as opposed to the full 100. I'd be amazed at any professional footballer doing that, because you only you play in that moment, don't you? Um, and we were laughing pre-match because the last time we bumped into each other before a game was Wait Swindon, and that was a game to remember. And you remember that Smallwood tackle, right, for which he got sent off, and and in some ways I admire Smallwood for doing that, because you went into it at 100%, and you went in to win that ball, right? And that's what you do as a professional footballer. Any challenge you go in for, you've got to go in it and think that you're going to win it. And Smallwood did that, and he was a bit unlucky. And Smallwood does have a habit of flying into tackles, and a couple of times he's got away with it, but he didn't on that day. So I don't think Power is holding back. I'd be surprised if that was the case. I think it's just kind of general drop off in form that we've seen with a lot of the other players. We've mentioned Neufeld already. I mentioned a couple of others had a bit of an off day, and that's me sort of giving Power the benefit of doubt. Obviously, a lot of people are giving him a load of stick, but I think he has been good. He has been consistent throughout the season, and that kind of brings me back to the overarching point that I'd make is we've still got what 20, 21 games left to go. How many have we played? We played 26.
I think you're right.
Can't remember.
So.
So still 20 games to go. We're still fourth in the table. We've still got a couple of games in hand over the teams above us. So on paper, there's a lot of positives still to take. However, what's really concerning is, like we just said at the beginning, it was the manner of defeat and the way that we just capitulated. We basically wimped out on Saturday.
Yeah, and I want to come on to the latter stages of the game, but before we get to that, I just wanted to pick out one of the best things, or probably the only good moment for us, and that was the Terry Yoroth tribute before the game. Both sets of fans I thought were fantastic, exemplary, the way that we went about it, and I guess that's because he's a legend from both clubs. But really nice moment, that, mate. I mean, he's probably more from your era than mine, to be honest, but everybody knows what an impact he had at Bradford City, and he were a hero as well that day. So, yeah, it were a nice moment, mate, wasn't it, from both ends?
It was lovely. It really was, and it was the same when we played at Cardiff last week, and Cardiff fans were obviously joined in because he was born in Cardiff, wasn't he? So it was really lovely. Like you said, obviously that 84-85 season where we won the divisional title, Yoroth was assistant to Trevor Cherry. And I've gone on record in saying, for me, Cherry is still the best manager that we've had. And that includes everything up until the present and modern day. And I say that because that's the only time we've won that divisional title. We've not come anywhere close since then. He was in charge, I think, the year before we went into administration, and he kind of guided us through that. And then obviously the year after, when we were homeless for a season, and we were playing at Huddersfield's All Ground, playing at Leeds Road. He kind of guided us, and we stayed up that year. It could quite easily have fallen apart that season. We could have come down, but I think his kind of stature, his kind of willingness to support the club, see it through, to kind of coach, to guide. I think it was just exemplary in terms of how a manager should just kind of lead a club through turmoil, which he did. Yorath was obviously there side by side. And then obviously he came back at later stages, didn't he? Did Terry Yorath? So I think he's had 3 separate stints at the club. The last one was when we made it to the Premiership with Paul Jewell. So synonymous with the club, really, in terms of successful periods. And I think he was assistant to Peter Jackson, and Jacka was there as their manager. So yeah, absolute, I think, stalwart at both sets of clubs. So it was really good to see him get that reception, and well deserved, I think.
There's actually a funny clip. I think it's on YouTube or somewhere I've seen it, where Gabby Logan sort of in the infancy of her sort of TV career, and Huddersfield are playing somebody in the cup, and Jacko and Terry have sort of been interviewed by her and somebody else in the studio. And I won't spoil it for you, but it's just the interaction between father and daughter, and it's really, really funny. Just a nice moment. So if anybody does get a chance, make sure you go and watch that. But yeah, just leave it on that. Rest in peace, Terry Yorath. Thank you for all you did for Bradford City, for sure. So moving on back to the game. Obviously, we looked like we didn't lay a glove on them at all. First half, I mean, after that point, you're thinking when you come back out from having a beer or whatever you do at half time, we're going to get done maybe 2 or 3-0. Could never really see a reaction in these players. However, we get to the 62nd minute, and there's a red card for a second yellow for one of their players diving in. From that point, you're thinking, we've got half a chance here because 10 men, I say that, they probably still had 11 men because the referee was still on the pitch. But we'll touch on that one again as well later. But you sat there thinking, okay, show us what you made about your City. You know, you've got 30 minutes plus to get at least a goal out of it. Just never looked like happened, did it, mate?
It didn't. I mean, up until that point, I think Huddersfield were having something like 60% possession. And then the last, from the 62nd minute onwards, those possession figures changed. We had more of the ball, understandably so, one more player on the pitch. So, but having said that, in terms of what we did in the box, in the final third, it was just, there was just nothing there. And I think we had one shot on target straight in at the keeper's arms. And like you said, Humphreys flashed across a shot across the face of the goal. Nobody at the end of it. I think that was about it from what I can remember. Tilt had a header straight into the keeper's hands. But that was about it, in 30 minutes with increased possession, with 10, they're down to 10. We've got a man advantage. And I think they still might have had another chance or two at the other end. So just, I'm running out of words to describe it. It's describe the disappointment. But yeah, it was just poor.
Rubbish. And I think I've mentioned the referee, so we'll come on to that. Obviously, he's not to blame for the result because give us a bit of a chance by sending one of their lads off. But barring that, he had a stinker as well. He must have had blue and white apple catchers on under that black kit for sure. Because in that first half specifically, every decision we're going to them, barring a yellow card when Aidan Baldwin pushed their guy, pushed him back, and he carded their player and ours. But
yeah,
a lot of fans were saying beforehand that he's probably a decent ref. I don't think we've ever lost when his ref does, and then obviously on Saturday you could say otherwise. But another poor performance from an EFL official. I don't know why your standpoint is on that. I don't think he lost as a game, but it wasn't very good, was he, mate?
To be honest, I kind of took it with a bit of pinch of salt. People talk about refs being a homer and all this, that, and the other, and it felt like if there was a 50-50, it was going to the home side. So, when you get a bit of a tussle and a player goes to ground, it seemed that Huddersfield were getting the kind of the rub of the green, really. They were getting those kind of close calls going in their favour. So it seemed to be one stage free kick after free kick after free kick that we're getting. Which is all part and parcel of football, mate. You know, when you watch a game over 90 minutes and you watch several games over the course of a season. So my only kind of question would be when that lad got booked for pushing over Baldwin. You've seen it in a lot of other games where that's been a straight red card. So there's an argument that perhaps that what should have been issued at that point, because he did bring his arms up, shoved Baldwin to the ground. Baldwin, you know, he's a big, strong lad. You know, I'm sure that push wouldn't have sent him over, but you know what footballers are like. He didn't roll over and kind of hold his face, you know, as a lot of them tend to do. He's just kind of laid on the deck. But as I said, in a lot of other games, you've seen a red card for that, bringing your hands up near the face of an opponent and pushing outwards. Could it have been a straight red? I don't know. But like I said, it wasn't long after when he got sent off anyway.
Probably want to change the outcome of the game, to be honest. I don't know at that point it might still be 0-0, but we were just wanting it at any point throughout the day.
Considering the performance and considering that we might be missing Sarcevic again on tomorrow night, would you go with the same lineup? Would you change it?
It's a tough one, isn't it? I think we need a striker down middle, and that's kind of the point I was going to come to you with there. That I just think it just highlights how much we're missing a number 9. For me, the most obvious thing to do in the world, and people wax lyrical about this every week. Jamie Rain has asked Graham Alexander about it probably 10 times now. Humphreys to one side, a natural striker in the middle, Pointer or whoever else to the other side. That to me, if you've got the feeling that you've got a chance of going up, that's what you need to do. And we're going to come to the transfer window and look at some possibilities. But even put Swan through the middle and put Humphreys on the left and Bobby on the right. I just think without that, we're not going to go up because nobody's finishing the chances. Sarcevic has outscored Humphreys this season. I think Bobby has as well.
Yeah.
So the goals are not coming from him in that position. And there'll be data to prove it. And I know that one of the argument points he's got is that Humphreys can't get up and down. I bet my bottom dollar that Humphreys is probably much fitter than Sarcevic in relation to being able to run and what have you. I really do. Could be wrong there, but that's just my feeling on it. And he's playing there quite happily. So I just think that for me, we need to probably, now if Sarcevic is out, we do need to probably get some more depth in those 10 positions. But that is the 100% the way I would go about it. There is a bit of stubbornness when it comes to Graham Alexander. And in certain ways, I really respect it and I really like it. But at what point could that cost us this season, mate?
That second point that you made about Alexander's stubbornness, I've thought the same thing. Is that he does persist with his system. A couple of times, you know, we've watched previous games and he won't make a change until like the 90th minute. And you're thinking, you know, everybody around us can see it needs something and it needs something different and you need to change it. But he's really, really resisted. So I tend to agree that he does seem to be a stubborn character. In terms of the lineup, who would he change? Like I said, based upon that performance, there's many people who deserve another place in the starting 11. But you know, the squad is the squad that we've got, and I fully agree with you. Having watched Humphreys the last few games when he's playing as in the number 9 role, what I find is that his kind of first touch lets him down a little bit. I think if he does get it under control, he then takes too many touches and he then gets dispossessed quite easily. He's not a big, strong lad. He looks it. I mean, he looks physical. He should be bowling people over with his physique, right? It's a bit like Kieran Kelly. You know, he's a big unit. He should be clattering his centre forwards and putting them into the stands. So Humphreys loses the ball a lot, doesn't lay it off, can't get hold of it, tries to dribble with the ball, often gets dispossessed. So many of his shots kind of tend to get blocked. So he's not. He doesn't have the attributes, I don't think, to play in a number 9 role. That's why I don't think he should be. It should be there. And if you noticed on Saturday, we brought Cav on, didn't we? And Cav ended up playing in that number 9 role, and Humphreys was on the left, and he didn't. You know, people talk about that's his more natural position, and he'll actually kind of drift in and take players on, and he can do this, that, and the other. Bit of showboating, really, to be honest. But he didn't do anything then either. I thought Cav probably looked better than Humphreys had done for the whole game. and Cav was only on the pitch for a short while. So I fully agree with you. I'd love to see us getting an experienced kind of striker coming in, somebody who can put those chances away. The other point that I'd make is in several years. You remember when Andy Cook had that absolutely superb season, and scored 31 odd goals. And in the years before then, all of us fans used to say, yes, it's brilliant having a striker who can score, but we also want to see more goals coming in from the midfield. And we've been saying that for years and years, and we'd never had a free scoring midfield. And now it's the other way around. We've kind of all our goals seem to be coming from midfield, and we don't have a striker at the other end who can kind of put them away. And lots of people make reasonable comments on Twitter and social media that we've got to second in the table, third in the table, without an out-and-out striker. And we kind of got promoted without Andy Cook, and we got to so high in the table without Andy Cook, so we can do it. However, I think we seem to have changed our style of play. And we said this earlier, the pattern of play seems to be different to what it was at the start of the season. And I think we will become more reliant upon any person at the other end of the pitch putting those chances away. I think they're going to be fewer and far between. Our XG doesn't seem to be brilliant at the moment, so we're not going to create a lot. But the ones we do create, we're desperately going to need somebody to put them away.
I think the last two games highlighted that though, because we're throwing balls into the box. We're obviously against Huddersfield. We were trying to put the ball in. There's just absolutely nobody there. One of the best moments Humphries had, like we said before, was when he sort of went past his man, put it across goal, and nobody were there. And just going back to Humphries, I actually do really like him. I see a real player in there, and somebody who's explosive. He's got that quick sort of acceleration in the moment, and he can make something happen out of nothing. But I just don't see that from him being down the middle, and I feel like that is really, really, really what we're missing. Hopefully, Alexander can see that from his post-match interview. Didn't seem that concerned really with what he's got and what he might get. But maybe he's just playing it down a little bit. Maybe they're going to shock us all, and we'll come back to a transfer window.
With his attributes, like I said, it is a big lad, right? He's not a Bobby Poynton physique or an Aki Wells physique. He's a big, strong lad, and I think he needs to be kind of putting himself about a bit. However, with the attributes that he's got, he seems to. I think he'd be better as the kind of classic number 10 role. Playing off a big lad up front, somebody who can run on at the flick-ons and somebody who can kind of nip in, on the shoulder of the kind of last defender. Somebody who's got that alertness, but playing him as a target man with his back to goal, I don't think suits him.
We're going to do a game that we did last week. So the game is basically you've got to name who the City player is.
Oh, I'm terrible at these.
You might get this one. I don't think it's that difficult. I can't believe how quick Ash got it last week, but that was quite an obscure one as well. But this one's probably a little bit easier. So I've got 1, 2, 3. I've got 6 clues for you, and I think as we go through it, they probably get easier.
Yeah.
So the first clue is that he started his career at Preston, and that's quite vague, but I'm going to leave it at that. And if you want to guess any player over the last 100 years, you're welcome.
I can't remember last. Did we sign him from Preston?
I can't say any more than that. That's the first clue.
No idea so far.
Not even one player you want to just throw out there?
Mine's gone complete blank. If it had warned me in advance, I'd have gone away and sort of Googled it.
So I can't do that.
Players who started at Preston.
Yeah, this is why I don't tell people about this. Right, okay. So the next clue is that he signed for Premier League Swansea at the time in summer of 2012 and was there at the time of the league playoff final against City. He wasn't in the squad though. Is that getting any easier?
So he was a Swansea player at the time.
Yeah, they signed him in 2012 and he was in the Swansea overall team, but he wasn't in the squad.
No idea.
No. If anybody's playing along with this, if you've got it off that, I'd be very impressed. Third clue is that he signed on loan at City in January of 2015-16. So it was a January transfer in 2015-16 season. We were in League One.
Signed on loan. And what
In that,
position was he? A striker, did you say?
can't tell you.
Yeah.
Can't tell you. But going off Januaries and what we usually do, then I'd probably say you're somewhere near there. We're like a striker in January.
No, blank. Sorry,
January
move on. Next
2015, 16, so 10 years ago. He scored on his debut against Port Vale. He's struggling here. That's Labib's heart because he's panicking.
I'm surprised it's beating that. No.
No.
The only person I can remember scoring his debut was somebody like Devante Cole. But
It's not him, but he's actually... There's a link here with him, and I'll tell you at the end if you don't get it. But I think he did score against Port Vale on his debut, weirdly, as well.
I think he did, yeah. No,
but it's not him, and it's a very similar time. He played 20 games for City. He scored 6 goals and assisted once. So 2015-16.
Yeah.
That's when he signed for us in January. He scored on his debut against Port Vale. He played 20 games, scored 6 and assisted once. So by those stats, you'd probably guess his position.
Yeah, so that's an attacking player, isn't it? Winger, maybe. Striker. No names.
The last clue I've got, I'm running out of clues for you here. They made the deal permanent until the summer, where he left, and his next club was Bolton. So he signed for Bolton on a permanent that summer. I think a lot of people probably get it off that one. That's Labib losing his marbles, if anybody heard that sound.
It was, yeah. No idea.
No idea?
Absolutely no idea.
His surname begins with a P.
Still no idea.
I can assure you that Labib is a Bradford City fan, for anybody worrying and anybody concerned, and he was following us in those days.
You're just going to name some completely obscure player. Go on.
I think you're going to kick yourself. Do you want me to name him? Are you ready?
Yeah.
Jamie Proctor.
Yeah, all right. Name that had completely escaped me. Of that anything more than a couple of days ago, my mind just goes to mush. So
there you go. Okay. Clearly, interestingly, he was actually only with us from. It seemed for me when I look back. I'm not saying he was one of my favourite players of all time or anything, but it seemed like he was with us a lot longer, and he was only with us from that January up until the summer of that same year.
Yeah.
He only played 20 games for us, but yeah. So the link with Devante Cole is that he actually signed for Fleetwood.
Yeah.
For £1,000 that same window that we signed Jamie Proctor.
Right.
So we got on a loan / free from them as part of the deal.
Yeah.
And he came in and did that. But yeah.
Unlucky, mate. It's not unlucky. I'm just rubbish at these, trying to remember names from the past. Absolutely clueless.
You remember him though, right?
I definitely remember the name. Yeah.
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 Yeah, he was tallish player. He used to sort of bully defenders a little bit. He wasn't terrible.
Short, skinhead haircut. Was that?
Yeah.
Yeah,
that's him. Yeah. Anyway, we'll move on from that. I thought he'd have got that one, to be honest. I thought it was a little bit easier this week, but maybe not. So if anybody else got that one on the earlier clues, please let us know on the
when
YouTube
you did the last
or whatever.
When you played the game on the last episode, again, I listened to it. Didn't have a clue to those players. No, absolutely useless when it comes to these.
See, for that one, I could understand more because he had less of an impact, and it were around a time where people weren't as interested because we were absolutely doggers. But when Jamie Proctor played for us, we were sort of pushing for, trying to get into playoffs in League One. But yeah. Anyway, we shall move on again. So this next is a quote from Stefan Rupp last June after promotion. I have the money to take us to the Championship. So that's what he said. So to take us to the Championship is his words. Now, looking at this transfer window so far, I wouldn't suggest that has been the case. We've seen 3 cult heroes leave, really, Patterson, Halliday and Cook. With them goes some pretty decent wages, to be honest. We've seen McIntyre go back to his parent club. Again, wages there. We've got a fee for Patterson. We've got the Newcastle gate money. and we've got a sell-on clause on Jake Young. We've not spent any money bringing players in. We've brought Sibley in, obviously on loan, White, and we've also brought in Ashby, the fullback, on loan as well. That's our transfer business so far.
You've missed one.
Does that have I? Who have I missed?
Lewis Richards gone to Crawley.
There's another one. And was that a fee as well?
I think there was. I think there was an undisclosed fee. Yeah.
Yeah, I did forget about that. And that's someone we were on about last week that we forgot about as well. So another one.
Yeah.
And again, I'm not saying he's a cult hero, but a lot of people liked him. He had some really good
I
games.
was sad to see him go because when he, that last season, when he was in the side, I thought he looked really good. Obviously, his throwing that hit the headlines. Do you remember that one?
Yeah, I do. I put that one back on the timeline as soon as he left. Thanks for the memories, Lewis. But that were. So, he laughed at himself though.
Yeah, but I thought he showed bags of potential, and he scored a couple of goals. I think he scored 2 in 2, and he was on a bit of a roll. Then he got injured and kind of came back in. And I always thought if he keeps himself fit, we've got a proper future star here. And then, of course, he got crocked again, didn't he? Adam Arola came in, and he was brilliant. And I think, obviously, since then, Touré's kind of taken it on. But just before we start talking about that, I've got to say I think he's been one of our best signings in the summer. Touré, he's just been so consistent, regardless of if he's in that wing back position or centre back position. I think he's been very, very good. Very good signing that.
Yeah, he's absolutely Mr. Consistent. He's almost taken that role from what Halliday gave us when he played on the other side of that back four and back five, in whichever position he was put in. And I totally agree with that. And it's been unfortunate, really, for Richards in that respect, because I thought he always had a touch of the Mezza about him, the way he played and the way he ran.
Absolutely,
and wanting to get past his man every time. And it didn't always come off for him. He dropped some stinkers as much as he did have some really good games. He had some poor games as well. But a lot of these players have been a victim of the club's success. However, I think they're a bit of a risk of sort of ripping almost the heart out of the team and not quite replacing it. And without doing that and getting some business in this January, not only are fans going to start thinking what's going on here, I think it's almost could reflect on the pitch because you've just got people that don't quite know each other. You've taken that feeling away from the club. And not replace it with better, and that's one of my concerns. On the Stefan Rupp quote unquote with the I have the money to take us to the Championship. Do you feel like we're going to see some money spent, or do you feel like it's like a consolidation job now and just sort of see what happens for the rest of the season?
Firstly, I was really pleased to hear him say that back then, because obviously we know that. Proportionately, we are going to have to spend more money to get up into the Championship than what we did to get out of League Two. And even if we got into the Championship, we'd have to spend more again just to keep ourselves there. And I keep mentioning this next bit to anyone who'll listen. Do you remember 442 magazine? I remember reading that about 20 years ago, and they said at the time that the Championship was the 5th richest division in Europe. So you had the big 4 leagues across Europe, like England, Spain, Italy, Germany, and the 5th richest was our own Championship. And if you look at the amount of money that people spend, you can understand why it's expensive to be there. But that's where we are aspiring to be, right? That's our next natural step. And I've got concerns about the fact that we don't seem to be investing at this moment in time, right? That's my overall kind of concern. We've got ourselves into a fantastic position. We've been, top 2, top 3 virtually all season. And we've got this big kind of reward that's within our grasp. And who knows how long it'll take before we get there again, right? 2017 was the last time we made it to the playoff final, and that was 9 years ago. And I don't want to wait another 9 years to get back into the same position. You've got to take the opportunity when it arises. My concern is that we're not going to invest and we're not going to spend, and we're going to see that opportunity sort of dwindle away. It looks like that's what the club is doing. We're not far away from the window closing. Doesn't seem to be much movement in terms of bringing players in. We're getting rid of players, and like you said, we're getting rid of big characters. So you need some sort of, I think introduction of ambition, if that's the right word to use, intent, right? And I think by doing that, you can kind of bring the fans back on board. Not we're not on board. I think the fans have been brilliant this last year and a half. But you need to kind of throw the gauntlet down, I think, and you need to kind of stick your chest out and saying, this is what we want to do, and this is our attempt to get there. But we seem to be shying away from that a little bit. Sibley was, a kind of bit of a ambivalent about it, if I'm honest. The two young lads coming in from Newcastle, again, not much to say on that. This young lad that we seem to be signing from Man United, this Wheatley, it's turning into a right saga, isn't it? His name was associated with us about 3 weeks ago, and apparently he's injured and we can't announce it. I don't know. But that doesn't seem to be reflection of a club that's got the championship within their grasp. And it seems that we're content with what we've got. If we make the playoffs, great. If we don't, we're happy to finish mid-table. That seems to be the message that's coming out of the club. And I hope I've got that wrong. It's not what I want to see. Again, I understand what people say to me, that at the start of the season, they would have been happy with a mid-table finish and just happy to stay in this division. And I would absolutely 100% agree with that at that time. However, you've got to put our current situation into context. We got off to an absolute flyer. We played all the top clubs and we weren't afraid of anybody. We took the game to them. We stamped our brand of football on the game and we showed that we can compete. And there's no reason why we can't carry on doing that. However, I think we do need to strengthen our squad. We have lost some key players out of it, and I think we need to replace them if we're serious about progressing. Now, the last kind of comment I'll make, and I'll shut up for a bit. Stefan Rupp took over when we were on the brink of the playoffs. So we were in League One playoff territory. The only kind of measure of progression will be if he gets us to the championship, right? Otherwise, we're in the same boat as we were when he took us over. There's no kind of measure of progression that way. We've gone backwards, and we went backwards for several years. And what's interesting to note is for quite a few of those years, Rupp didn't invest. And you can remember Ryan Sparks talked about being sustainable and being a sustainable club, and we need to break even. We need to make sure we don't go into debt. And there was just nothing happening in terms of key investment. Then all of a sudden, David Sharp came in, maybe arguably on the back of the fans' protest, and then we started to see some investment. And what happened once we started to see that investment? Right, we got promoted. There was some further investment in the summer, and what happened? We've been top 2, top 3 all season, and now it seems like that investment has kind of dried up a little bit. And my worry is that we're going to start to sink. Unfortunately, modern day football means that success requires that level of investment and continued investment. And like I said, I'm fearful that if it doesn't happen, we're just going to go backwards.
There's a few things to come back up to and discuss there a little bit further. I guess one of the things is the quota of players that you're allowed to register. Obviously, there is gaps now because we've seen 5 leave the club because we forgot about Lewis Richards before, and we've only seen 3 come in. We're also potentially looking at Neil Byrne signing for Doncaster. And a chap that goes down and watches the training said that Byrne and Powell were training together away from the rest of the squad, which probably suggests that Powell maybe also have been told to look for a club. So that potentially gives you another sort of 3 or 4 spaces there to recruit for. And I feel like that's probably what it's going to take. You won't be surprised to see somebody like George Lapslie leave the club as well. So I think one of the things we've got to consider is the quota of players who are allowed to register. But the way that it's looking is we'll have at least 2 or 3 to look at and potentially bring players in. So I'm hopeful on that front. There's only so long we can say that we're punching above his weight. Fans say that as an argument. We're sort of in a bit of a false position in the table. We're not. We are where we deserve to be based on winning football games. But that's not to say that we don't need to strengthen like other clubs have naturally done around us to sustain that and maybe go that little bit of a step further. Lincoln have done really well in the transfer window and look where they are. The likes of Stockport, Bolton, all these teams around us are making moves because they see it as an opportunity. I actually think League One's quite weak this year, barring Cardiff, and I think it's a real opportunity. Looking at next year, I think it gets stronger. The other thing to mention that will be touched on is the money that is in the Championship. I know that a lot of people say we won't be able to compete, but just that financial impact of us being in there one season, if we didn't massively recruit, what you get in the Championship as a club is about 11 million. In League One, you get 2 million. So that's £9 million difference of sort of central funding, whatever you want to call it, and then it drops to 1.5 million in League Two. Premier League, we're not going to talk about, that's off the charts. But just even one season in the Championship would do a lot for us as a club financially if we didn't go silly with signings. And I think at that point, fans wouldn't be as on top of the board to say you must sign him, because when we get to Championship, that's when we would be beyond our means. I don't quite think we are at the minute. I think we've got a decent enough squad, but it definitely needs adding to. And then another thing to build on that is football is about, at times, taking speculative risks. And at this particular point, when it's on a golden platter, the potential of promotion and being in the automatic push, it's as good as time as you're ever going to get to inject a little bit of money to get us there. And not only that, there's money there. Like we've discussed earlier in this episode, there's money there from the gates at Newcastle. There's probably 250 grand in that particular pot, including other players that have gone. Maybe it's just that we've not showed his hand yet and we're trying to keep things quiet under the radar, which would be absolutely fantastic. And obviously me and Labib and other people will reserve judgment. But as fans, I think it's important that there is some expectation from us based on where we are in the league for us to see moves happening and players coming in that can take us that little bit further, because next season's going to be tougher, isn't it, mate?
I think it will. And I think, like you said, you've kind of got to grasp that opportunity, but you've also got to kind of build on your momentum. And we've had a fantastic kind of period of 2025. It's been tremendous momentum. Obviously, the back end of last season, getting promotion, and then the start of this season, doing so well. Perhaps a little bit unexpectedly, but we have done well, and I think we need to build on that. So like you said, you kind of got to speculate a little bit. I also get, people are a little bit cautious, and we don't want to hark back to kind of that second year in the Premiership where we almost kind of bankrupted ourselves. And I'm not for 1 minute suggesting we do that. So I do understand there's a little bit of caution, and I do also understand people don't quite think we're ready for the Championship. But my response to that is, you don't know you're not ready until you're there. No, if the opportunity's there and it's at your fingertips, fourth in the table, couple of games in hand, win those, and you're absolutely right in the middle of the mix. Why wouldn't you want to go for it? That's my view on it. Why wouldn't you?
I guess another argument is that signing a striker in January is hard. Strikers are a hot property. They come at a premium. They also, I think a lot of them are thinking about the next career move. So looking at some of the ones that we've been linked to, Jatters, Langstaffs, Wheatley, Wareham at Exeter as well, he'd be one of that I'd particularly go for. But they're going to think to themselves, however long they've got on the contract, they can also push for moves and make moves happen. Even in the lower leagues, it happens all the time. People think about people like Paquetá at West Ham trying to push for a move and whatever. But Accrington, the centre half that we've been in for him, Ben, what's he called?
Ward.
Ben somewhere? Anyway,
Ward.
Ben Ward.
Yeah,
he was out of the squad for Accrington at the weekend.
Was he the lad who scored for Accrington at Walsall on that penultimate day?
I think he might be, actually.
We lost at Donny, didn't we? 2-0, 2-1.
Yeah.
And then Walsall lost at Accrington, meaning on the last day we just needed a win. I'm sure it was Ben Ward who scored for Aki.
I'm going vacant in my expression, but I think you could be right. And if anybody can confirm that, I'm sure me and Labib will have a look after we've done this. But I think
Yeah,
it could be because I remember, sort of thanking him and as you do on
that's right.
Twitter and
Yeah,
saying,
yeah,
help towards our promotion. Now come join us. And we actually were in for him over the summer. We were interested in signing him and looking at him. But it's coming at a premium, and I think it's $500,000 that's been touted now. If our club had announced we've signed him for $500,000 and not a striker, then you are thinking, well, is the money going to be better spent elsewhere? But he's a young centre half that's probably got a good career ahead of him, so it's good business in one sense. But we're looking at needing that particular position. Everybody can see it that watches us week in, week out. We haven't got a number 9, and I think that we are more of an attractive club than we give ourselves credit for. Support aside, it's a club that's riding that crest of that wave from promotion still. We've played some good football this season. Players have played against us and seen us and what our fans can bring, selling out away allocations every week and backing them. I think that we are a really, really good club at League One to be part of and want to be part of. And I think players will see that. Talking about some of the names we've been linked, mate, for me, the one that I really, really would like is Jatta. He splits opinion. But I really like him, and I think that he's got all the attributes that would really suit our system. But if not him, I think the guy at Exeter Wareham would be another one that I'd look at. What are your thoughts? There's other ones being linked to, obviously, Langstaff. We've talked about Ethan Wheatley. On him, he has been training again with Man United over the last sort of week or so. So is it that he's still not quite 100%, so we don't want to announce him, or is it that we've got him regardless and we're going to do a Curtis Guthrie and announce him late on anyway if we don't get anybody else?
In terms of Jatta, this season he's not set League Two on fire. I was looking at the list of top scorers throughout League Two, and he's not up there. There's lots of others who have scored more in League Two this season, and I'm just thinking whether he needed somebody like McGoldrick to play off, because obviously the two of them were playing together last season in League Two, and Jatta's goals were coming, I think, more frequently than what they are this season. So the question is, I think he is a good player. I think it'd be a good signing, but I think we'd need to be quite careful as to who we're playing with, because it seems like a player who would have to feed off somebody else. I don't think he's an out and out number 9. That's the impression I get. Could be wrong, but yeah, I mean, in terms of age, experience, kind of what he's achieved so far, I think it'd be an interesting signing. I don't really know much about the others. Obviously, Langstaff was also at Notts County, wasn't he, a couple of years ago before he went to Millwall. Championship level striker, and I think, as people have said, unfortunately, he's now getting picked regularly as a starter for Millwall.
Yeah, so I said this the other week about Langstaff getting picked regularly, but he's been playing in the 10 in behind. He's not been playing sort of his natural position. And they're signing Barry Bannon, who I think will play in that 10. And that's pretty much his position. And he'll definitely play because he's superb. He's Barry Bannon. And specifically in the Championship, I think that he'll start. So Langstaff might find himself out of the squad quite quickly. However, you'd like to think that because he has been playing regularly, Millwall fans like him as well. It's not that he's just sort of on and off. That he might get Championship interest. Millwall need the money, probably not. They're doing pretty well.
Yeah.
Do they need to sell him, or is it good to keep in case Bannon does get injured or somebody else? So I'm like you. I'd be very, very impressed and shocked if it did happen. But there's rumours that we're in for him, and it's the sort of play that we all want and what we want to be looking at. So it's a good link to have. And then I guess we've not touched on Wareham at Exeter, so he's having a really good season. I think he scored 13 goals. They're struggling. Aren't they? I think I can't remember where they're on the table. Typical number 9.
They've moved up the table. They were towards the bottom, but I think they've progressed. They might be in the top half now, I believe.
Probably due to his goals. And again, he's scoring week in, week out at the minute, and he'd be a really good one. And they need the money as well. So would that be a shout? Possibly. So there are strikers out there. It's just, I guess, what we're looking for, and if we're looking to tie somebody down and how old they are, and there's a lot more that goes into it these days with our recruitment, and we've seen that our recruitment has been bloody good over the last couple of seasons, and it's got us to where we are.
Yeah.
But I think we need to see that again, and again reserving judgment until the end of January, of course. But we are expecting something. I think probably 80% of supporters, I would suggest at the minute, are expecting some business this January window.
Yeah. When does it actually end, Adam? Do you know the date of
I think
January transfer window?
I'm sure it's the first or second now, where you've got to submit your paperwork. It used to always be the last day in January, didn't it? But yeah, I think we're all expecting a little bit of something. But
Agreed. Yeah.
the proof will be in the pudding, and I think that'll show us where we're at and where we're at from an owner's perspective and what he wants to do if he does want to progress us following those promises, because we don't get a lot of funding in League One, like we've mentioned that comparison before. But we would in the Championship. It'd be a winner for him. It really would if he does want to move on and sell the club to somebody who can take us that next step from the Championship, because it makes us probably another 10 million more attractive. And he might buy the ground as well. Who knows? But that's another conversation in itself. The proof will be in the pudding, and hopefully Graham is thinking the same, but just not giving out away in interviews. I'm hoping that deep down. So let's move on to the upcoming fixtures, because we said going into the fixture against Huddersfield that it doesn't get much easier and we need at least a point out of that fixture. That didn't happen. So that almost looks like Lincoln is it's definitely a 6-pointer now based on them winning. I know we've got a game in hand still, but losing there would potentially, for me, put us out of the automatic race, if I'm really honest, and it'd be all focused on the playoffs, because I think we'd be 9 points behind them if they beat us.
That's exactly what I thought. I thought if we lose away at Lincoln, I think we can wave goodbye to that second place. I think Cardiff will probably win the title. So I think they look pretty comfortable, and they seem to be getting better and better, don't they, Cardiff? So I think it's that second place that's up for grabs. And I absolutely agree with you. If we lose tomorrow, I think we can wave goodbye to that. It'd be just too far to claw back. Having said that, we know what happened last year. Look how far behind we were at one stage of those kind of automatic promotion places. However, our kind of form is a reversal of last season's form. We started very averagely and got better and better. And I think we started really, really well this season. We seem to be kind of progressing backwards at this moment in time. Let's hope Alexander can reverse that form and fortune the next few games. But definitely agree tomorrow, 6-pointer. Like we said earlier, Donny then, bogey team. So that's not going to be an easy game. Not that they're a particularly good footballing side, but I think just because of local rivalry, that kind of tension, that kind of, Yorkshire derby. And then it doesn't get much easier. And we've got Luton away after that. So again, another tricky game after that. So the next few games coming up, I think will probably make or break our season.
Absolutely. And I think if we don't get at least a point on Tuesday, that the pressure itself that we'll feel in the ground on Saturday against Donny, because of all these things we've spoke about, bogey team, them beating us and whatever else, I think it'll be a lot. And I think there'll be a lot of pressure and intensity on the players to perform. And I think we might struggle again. So yeah, it's huge, absolutely massive. We need to turn up. Hopefully he'll rotate and drop a few players that didn't deserve to wear the shirt, in my opinion, at the weekend. But there you go. You could pick most names out of a hat that probably fit into that category with a performance. Yeah. But I think he certainly needs to make some changes. The last thing is about the kit. So obviously we played in the pink kit, and a lot of people were thinking, why? We've struggled in it this season. Why are we not wearing our traditional colours against our rivals? The claret and amber against the blue and white. I thought the same. And I was just thinking, immediately, why are we not doing that? I don't think they did it when they played us as well. But I read some information by the City kit man, say it's governed by the EFL, what you can and can't wear. And it's something to do with, there was some clash in there somewhere, like the socks or something clashed. So I think we were governed by them. I hope that is the case, because I'm not a fan of not wearing your home kit where you can. I think you should always try and wear it. Any thoughts on that, mate?
Well, the first point I'll make is when we played last week against Cardiff, right? Cardiff at our place. I thought it was really nice that Cardiff turned up and played in their traditional blue and white kit, because it seems to be that every team turns up, always play in an away kit, when they play away, even when there's no clash of colours. You know, it seems like they're forced to wear this kit. And I'm like you. I'd always want to see a club play in their traditional colours wherever possible, and you only change if there's a clash. You don't automatically wear your away kit for an away game. Like I said, only if there's a clash. So it was really good. Cardiff played in blue and white. The When we played Huddersfield at the start of the season, when we beat them 3-1. That's just in case any Huddersfield Town fans are listening. Just to remind you, when we beat you 3-1, they played in the away kit. Right, I'm pretty certain they didn't play in their blue and white stripes. And again, that was a little bit disappointing because for me, I think when you get a full house and you see colours represented on the terraces, blue and white, and you see our lot, claret and amber, you want to see that reflected on the pitch. I'm a bit old school, a bit traditional that way. So yeah, it would have been nice for us to wear our traditional claret and amber. However, I don't understand why people are moaning about our pink kit. I've seen us win at least twice, if not more, in that pink kit. We won away at Stockport, right? Wearing that pink kit. Pretty certain at Plymouth, won away 1-0. We were wearing that pink kit. There's at least two. There might be more. We haven't had a huge number of away wins, but I have seen us win wearing that pink kit. So I don't think it's cursed. I don't think it's unlucky. We were just shocking on the day.
Yeah.
That's why we lost it. Nothing to do with the kit.
What did we wear at Cardiff, actually? Cardiff away might have been pink kit.
We were in our home kit at Cardiff, away
Were we?
at Cardiff. Yeah,
Well, there you go.
yeah.
And that was probably, for me, the best performance of the season. I thought we were superb that day.
Superb,
And
yeah,
just, just to leave it on that particular note, what has happened to us since that early season? I know people say that we've been worked out, but in those games we were just unstoppable, against teams like Cardiff, and they didn't lay a glove on us. And you compare that to how we played against them at our place and then at the Huddersfield performance, it's like chalk and cheese.
It is, and people talk about, well, we've been found out, and people are like negating our playing style, and when you start to get technical about it, people say, well, a lot of teams now playing it long, so they don't like to play possession football against us. But that wasn't the case against Huddersfield. Huddersfield were quite happy to play the ball to feet, get hold of it, pass it around, and that ideally is the typical sort of team we do well against. We press, we win the ball back, we break quickly. So I was quite confident if Huddersfield play a possession-based game of football, we did really well. It's when people hoof it long and just knocking it up into the air, that's where we struggle because we can't get hold of it. So, but having said all of that, when we did get the ball on Saturday, we were just atrocious with it. We were just absolutely shocking. So whether we do need a slight change in setup, change in formation, and play a bit more of a traditional 3-5-2, so put that extra body into the middle instead of the three lads up front, but to avoid us getting overrun in the middle of the park. Power and Metcalf, I think, are two very good players. When they play together, I think they do complement each other. But at times, if you've got a strong 4, maybe 5-man midfield in opposition, we are going to get overrun. Alexander's really interesting to listen to in his pre-match presses because if you notice, one thing he always talks about is ourselves. It's always focused upon us. What can we do? How can we improve? How can we get better? What can we do to win it? It's not about focusing on the opposition. Whereas I think it's the other way around with a lot of the clubs. They look at us, they look at the style that we play, and they look at how can we negate it and how can we combat it. So, next few games are going to be a real challenge to see if we can kind of restore some of that early season form. Hope we can, because it is really entertaining to watch. We play quick passing movement, we break quickly, we attack in numbers, and we score. We're scoring freely, weren't we? Really. So let's hope. Fingers crossed. It's a return back to that early season form.
And on that, just to echo what you've said, I think when we are on song, and we've been on song this season, it's so good to watch. It really is. It's enjoyable being a City fan, but I just think in the same respect, it's not that we always want more as humans or whatever, but I just think we all appreciate where we are and where we can be if we do kick on and keep up this form. So fingers crossed that happens. Just before we close up for today, mate, just a quick prediction against Lincoln, if you can.
I so difficult based upon an abject performance on Saturday. I'd be happy to come away with a point away at Lincoln. Yeah, I'd take a draw.
I also think the same. I'm going to go 1-1. I think that
yeah,
it might be that we score and then maybe try and sit in a little bit because of obviously the last couple of performances getting beat twice on the bounce, and I think Alexander probably sees a point as a pretty good result there. Well, as always, Labib, thank you very much for coming on, mate. We'll leave it there and we'll probably see you in a week or so.